Hi, my name is Casey Watts-Morgan, hard-hitting journalist from HAA News. And we have a very special edition for our HAA members. We wanted to discuss the upcoming presidential election, and I could think of no one better to do that than our current president, Gina Erwin, and our past president, Stephanie Graves. So I'm excited to begin this interview with them. They often agree to disagree on politics, but that is exactly the kind of discourse that we need, something that is diplomatic and always very friendly. So we are excited that you have joined us this evening. So Gina, we'll start with you. Following election politics this year has been unpredictable, to say the least. Much has unfolded over the last 6 to 8 months, and ultimately, former President Donald Trump found himself at the top of the ticket for the Republican presidential ticket. And of course, there was great suspense on the Democratic side, with President Biden withdrawing from the race and Vice President Kamala Harris earning the top position on the Democratic ticket. So with all of this back and forth, it could be easy to become disenchanted with the political process. What do you say to prospective voters to keep them engaged?
If you're disenchanted with the manner in which the DNC has handled this, whether you think the delegates should have released Biden, whether you think that it should have gone to an open vote at the convention, regardless of how you feel it ended up in the same place, and we have two candidates and you have to vote. If you don't like the policies of your party, then vote the other party or vote independent. But it's most important that people get out and vote and be a part of the process. Don't get so disenchanted that you feel like you need to just remove yourself from the process and you can't make a difference.
That's the challenge I see, right? That's the challenge I see with most people is when you even attempt to talk about politics, which you try not to, right? Which is unfortunate as well. But when you even attempt to say, have you seen such and such? They're just like, oh, it's just ridiculous. Right, they're just all crazy, and she doesn't know what she's doing, and he doesn't know. He doesn't stop tweeting, right? So that's the challenge: is really getting people to understand that despite the candidates, unfortunately, in their personality, which we've had this discussion before. Gina and I were texting each other about stuff, and she's like, "Look, great personality, but policies aren't what I'm interested in. Bad personality, but policies are what I'm interested in." Right.
Right.
And so finding a way to separate your passion from your purpose, from your ideals, I think is really important. So figure out what those key ideals are that are important to you. Is it freedom? Is it women's rights? Is it voting rights? Is it social protocol? Is it fiscal conservatism? What is it that are the top 3 things? And then really find some good sources of data that can give you objective ideals. And believe it or not, there are some there.
There are
some.
Outside of the media and outside of social media.
Yes.
Great, thanks guys. Moving on to the next question. We talked a little bit about what is at stake in the upcoming election, but I'm hoping that you can each comment on some of your favorite policies of your ticket. So Gina, we'll start with you.
I am a policies voter. I am not emotional. I don't vote on feelings. I don't vote on vibes. I don't vote on how another candidate makes me feel. I'm a policies voter. So much like what Stephanie was talking about, I dig for data. I dig for stats. I don't judge on intentions, I judge on actions. And fortunately, we're in a place where we have 2 candidates in front of us who have both held office. So I can look back at the Trump presidency and make decisions. I can look at Kamala Harris's vice presidency and her Senate record. So that said, I've kind of made some notes and some things that are important to me as a voter. These are the things that really resonate with me. Border policy. And this is really funny being in Texas because there's some bittersweet back and forth about having immigrants over and how that impacts our wages, and it can serve us better in business. But we have to have strict borders, and it's something that I believe in. To highlight a few of the things, and I've made some notes here because I don't want to overlook anything that's really important to me. Obviously, the border policy, inflation is a giant problem. Wars, I think all these things are probably concerns that everybody has on both sides. Mm-hmm. A couple of things that are really big for me, and part of this is probably driven by my husband's in the oil business, and so I stay in tune to that industry as well. The old Petrodollar Pact Act that expired earlier this year that nobody's paying attention to, where the US dollar was the world reserve currency, that's really important, and it's kind of not made big news. I don't think it excites everybody because there's this kind of back and forth between fracking and do you or don't you or drill or don't or whatever, but that's something that I think has snuck up on us, and I'm paying attention to. Capital gains taxes, I think, is really a big issue for us, especially as apartment owners. The unrealized capital gains tax, that is a huge issue for me. And so canceling the electric vehicle mandate, you want an electric car? Fine, don't make me have one. Things like that. So these are the things that kind of drive me, that I'm kind of honed in on, that move me, if you will. That said, I don't get moved unless the policy is behind it, because I'm all about the policies.
Great, thanks, Gina. Stephanie, what about you?
I support initiatives, certainly that the GOP support. However, while I'm a policy voter, I do listen to what the candidates say. And so no matter what the policy is, and it's interesting too when you look at the record, because I really think with these two candidates, it's not even fair to look at the record, because Trump was in the middle of COVID, and for them to talk about job gains or job losses during that time frame is just ridiculous. It doesn't even matter. And even if we only look at before he was in office, the little bit that was affected by what he did was a runoff, I think, of what was happening, because we had a Democrat in office before. And then with now talking about Biden's history, which is, I guess, Kamala's history, they were coming off of, right, and recovering from COVID. So, like, I feel like the last 8 years, looking at that data is so skewed, because yes, there were jobs created, because so many were lost, right? And so how much of an influence does the top of the ticket president have on the policies that are being passed? Because we have checks and balances in our system,
We
right?
have 3 branches.
Yes, and so, we have the House, and everything has to go through that process. So while the policies of the administration are important, it's also how is the personality, function, and ability of the leader to drive those policies. The culture of America is based on what the leader-in-chief believes. And so it's challenging for me, even with a great deal of the policies that I could support with the Republican Party, the culture created by that entity at this point is not something that I can support.
Okay, so here's a challenge for you guys. I'd like for each of you to comment on what you believe are positive attributes of the opposing ticket. And Stephanie,
Stretch, Gina.
Can we plead the fifth?
Right, I said this was going to be challenging. So think positively. Stephanie, this is a real brain buster, I know, but think of something positive about the Donald Trump JD Vance ticket.
He has passion and knows how to create excitement and attention in his communication.
Gina, can you comment on some positive attributes of the Kamala Harris Tim Walz ticket?
Yes, and I will. And I will go on record and say, and Stephanie knows this because we are friends and we do text.
Yes.
I did watch the entire the DNC convention, and I will tell you that one of my takeaways that was positive is that Kamala Harris is an incredibly talented salesperson. I think she gave a fantastic speech. I think she spoke very well. She stayed on point. And I think she has had a successful career because she has the ability to sell herself. And to some degree, we do that every day.
Yeah.
We do that at the apartment association. We do it in our companies. So I think that is her gift. I think she is an incredible salesperson and probably has many of the same attributes that you were talking about that Donald Trump has, in that she has the ability to pull people together, to be able to rally people behind her. And I think that all kind of falls under the sales gift, if you will.
Okay, thank you guys. I want to take some time to focus a little bit on the multifamily industry, and I'm hoping that you can speak to why this election is important to our industry. And Gina, we'll start with you.
I think there's 2 impacts to our industry. One is the owner investment side, and then the other is obviously the renter. And so, owners, investors are going to have a very, very hard time getting people interested in our industry, getting people to want to invest if there are taxes on unrealized capital gains, and if there are increased taxes on capital gains. So I think that's one side of it, on the owner side. And then you also look on the renter side. You know, as landlords, we cannot absorb the amount of inflation that we have. We cannot absorb the amount of taxes that are burdened upon us. We have to pass on along those costs to our renters. And in the middle of an affordable housing crisis, which we all acknowledge that we are in, and we can't seem to solve it, tax increases and the burdens that are put on us by inflation are not going to help that. It's creating a wider gap between what is affordable and what is not. And I think that continues to be a problem in our industry.
Mm-hmm. I look at a third group, though. A third group is our employees. And while that is our ownership, I also look at how do the policies that come down affect our employees? How do they affect the team members, right? Because, you know, and one level is the investors and the owners. And yes, obviously the decisions they make are going to roll down. But the day-to-day of the employees that work in the industry, because the majority of the people that are members of the apartment association are working people that are not worried about capital gains taxes. Right? Yes, they should indirectly, just like they'll indirectly worry about a fire change, but
well,
they're
401k. I mean, unrealized capital gains, people have to pay on their 401ks. I mean, that directly impacts the employees.
There has to be some sort of balance on both sides, and I think no matter who wins, we've got to be engaged on the local level as well. From the PAC and the Apartment Association, Texas Apartment Association, NAA, they are working to fight our battles that we need, no matter who wins or how it works. So
I agree.
The presidential election is important.
It is
absolutely.
important.
But everything below that line, from the Texas area to the local area, don't go to the ballot. Don't, if whatever gets you to the voting booth, great. But don't make it be Trump or Harris.
Right.
Make it be, how can I affect change both locally, at the state level, because those initiatives, those things that we do are going to directly affect how everything else runs.
Very well said. Mm-hmm. We agree. Hey, we agree.
Well, this is a surprise. You guys are unprepared for this.
Okay.
This is called my lightning round. And I am going to say a person's name, and you can only answer with one word to describe this person.
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh.
Stephanie, you're up first. The person is Nancy Pelosi.
Unappealing.
Gina?
Eyebrows.
Okay. All right, Stephanie, George Bush.
Entertaining.
Gina, George Bush.
George Bush. Engaging.
Okay, final word. Gina, I'm going to go to you next. Barack Obama.
Charming.
Stephanie?
Lovely.
Okay, so
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. And before I say anything, let me say thank you for agreeing to do this and being a good sport. So many families and friendships have been fractured over politics, and it's so nice to know that I can sit down here and we're going to probably disagree on a lot of things, but that's okay.
Yes.
And have a productive conversation and be able to work our way through it.